everyone, my name is Chessie. I used to be a beauty influencer on YouTube, and I feel like your parasocial relationships with brands is getting weird. I've had this idea for a video for a very long time because for a very long time I've felt like the parasocial relationship that we have with brands is off. And it wasn't until I started doing this new thing called visual decluttering that I've really been able to form my thoughts behind the whole thing. I started visually decluttering my house and something strange happened. My items became more of what they did rather than what they are. As I've been removing branding labels, it feels like I've been removing the identity from the item. And then Trader Joe's avocado oil just becomes avocado oil. I got inspired to visually declutter my house from a creator on YouTube. Her @ is Figs Feelings. She's like unbelievably cool, lives in Germany, and started visually decluttering her beauty products. She wrote a Substack article about it, which I will leave linked down below. But when I saw her post and what her products looked like, something clicked with me. I didn't do it right away, but I had been thinking about it for a week. And then I finally did it with a few products that I use every day. I did it with like my contact solution, my cleanser. I stuck with products that I easily recognized based on the bottle shape and ones that I was of course very familiar with. I would love to talk more about my visual decluttering though, because it has completely transformed me. My visual decluttering process really opened my eyes to just how much importance we put on brands. Oftentimes, the value we put on brands outweighs the value that we put on the product that we're buying. And when we place value more on the brand than the product that we're buying, we lose touch of why we were buying anything in the first place. I think it's important to bring up a little bit of cosmetic history. I remember when I was first getting really into makeup, and I was pretty young when I got into makeup. I'm 28 now, but I was about like 10 or 11, so like 5th grade. But I was also on YouTube at a really young age and consuming beauty-related content at a really early age. It also wasn't always YouTube videos, but blogs as well. Blogs used to be really popular, and I got a lot of my beauty information from blogs. And I remember discovering that cruelty-free beauty brands were a thing, and it was something I had never thought about before, like animal testing. And I think that really was one of the first big movements, at least that I know of, for beauty. That little leaping bunny was really impactful, and people began buying from exclusively cruelty-free brands and started shaming brands that weren't. And the cruelty-free characteristics of a brand and a product is still really important today. It does dictate a lot of how people shop, and I really think in the past, brand boycotts meant something. A lot of brands in those early years switched to being cruelty-free, and the discussion for brands to continue making the switch is still one that's talked about. More recently, we saw a major change in cosmetics when people started speaking out about shade ranges. I was a preteen in a time where I could go into a drugstore and not find a foundation shade that worked for me, or a concealer shade, because that might have been what I was wearing as a preteen. Most of the brands at that time carried maybe 5 shades, or 10 if you were lucky. Higher end brands sometimes had larger shade ranges, but the undertones weren't always accurate, and rarely did they ever go deep enough. But through consumer boycotts and really bold marketing campaigns from certain brands, that changed the industry. And now you can go into a drugstore and see a plethora of shades and undertones. So I want to know, when was the last time we revolutionized the industry? And is it time to dismantle what it's become? Fast fashion, fast beauty, new release, new collection, buy this, not that, dupes, holy grail, monthly rotation, weekly rotation, biggest sale of the year, weekend sale, buy 2, get 2, stock up. Brands oftentimes participate in performance activism, which means they stand up for ideas and causes that a lot of people care about. People will then flock to the comment section and announce that they're supporting and placing an order. But what actually are you supporting? Your favorite brand suddenly drops a out of touch and out of context ad with a controversial famous person. The products you bought are now unusable and trash. You're not buying from them anymore, but have you heard of this dupe? Companies know they can get away with doing whatever they're doing. They constantly test the boundaries and see how far they can go. And I genuinely think that's what's been happening with recent campaigns that we've seen. They change up formulas, they discontinue and re-release, they donate to campaigns, they fund billionaires' lives, they cover up secrets, and they create new trends. They do this whether you love them or you hate them. So it's time to use that energy elsewhere. Buy one, buy when you need, make what you need, borrow what you need, find multiple uses, go without, discover something new entirely. If you're going to be a high spending consumer, it is always important to know what you're buying and be informed. And voting with your dollar is not harmful. Next time you do buy something though, I want you to ask yourself, are you buying this to use it and allow it to do its job? Or are you buying it just to acquire it? There happens to be a big difference. Sorry if I sounded a little bit like a robot there. I was actually reading from my phone. I made some notes about the subject. Yeah, if you aren't following me on TikTok, you might want to at least check out what I've been doing on there. I have been visually decluttering my house by removing brand labels from a lot of my products, and the journey has been the most transformative, eye-opening, brain rewiring, personal experiment that I have ever done. I used to be a big overconsumer and I genuinely had a shopping addiction. The two are related simply because I used to have an overconsumption problem and now I don't. Having a shopping addiction and viewing items, especially beauty products, as things to acquire has left me with not only a lot of mental work to do, but also a lot of physical work to do in my life and my home. So I might not be over consuming now, but the damage that's been done from my era of over consuming is still really present in my everyday life. For me, removing the labels from my everyday products helps me remember that that item has one job and it's to do the thing that I've bought it to do. And it's not about the brand, it's not about the name. Really, I was just left with tons of products that all do the same thing and having no respect for them, which I think is problematic when you're trying to be really intentional with your purchases. My time as a beauty influencer was my big justification for what I was participating in. And at the time, it really was my creative outlet. I love filming videos and editing them and finding a niche audience of people to share and bounce ideas off of. And makeup can obviously be used creatively. It's beautiful and there's lots of colors and textures and finishes. I also loved photographing my makeup and my makeup products, but unfortunately overconsumption was just at the root of my creative outlet and my hobby. I did used to place a lot of value on brands and the brands that I was using. My very first experience with being disappointed by a brand was Glossier and the Out of the Gloss article that came out at the time.
It's just really sad that these retail employees experience the same work environment that any other shitty retail job experiences. However, Glossier profits off the fact that people really believe that they're different. It really makes me sad that this hasn't gotten the traction that it deserves compared to other brands that have been called out. I believe because people feel so deeply connected and emotionally connected to Glossier because Glossier has been able to create that brand. Why should we sit here and defend a brand and be silent on a situation when there are people from the company begging for people to listen because they have experienced racism and sexism and inadequate working conditions and their voices have been silenced? We shouldn't treat Glossier any differently than how we hold other brands accountable just because we feel differently about them. We've built such an emotional connection towards Glossier and the brand overall because of their marketing, because they've made us believe that they're different, that they're on the same level as us, we're all on the same team. Our emotional connections towards the brand should not hinder us from taking action and doing what's right.
I think this was in 2020, which a lot of formative things were happening around that time for me and everyone else. But when you break an item down and allow it to be only what it does and not what it is, it really just changes your entire perspective on consumerism and what it means to buy something and the difference between buying and accumulating. I would love to discuss more in the comments below. Follow me on TikTok. It's right now at Respun by Chessie. And yeah, I would just really love to know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you aren't already subscribed, definitely go ahead and do so, and hopefully I will see you next time.